Forgot to unmute myself then. We are live. Welcome, guys, to the pre-market overview, July 1st, 2020. Happy Wednesday and happy first of the month. Midway through the week, hopefully your trades are going well. Obviously got a little bit to go to see what happens by the end of the week. So I'm just going to explain what we're going to do for those that haven't been to the pre-market overview before. So the main point of the overview is that we go through our newsletter. Our newsletter is something that's sent out every single day. So I'll show you the document, obviously, that I'll go through today. If you want to subscribe and get that document for yourself, for you to look at, obviously, whenever you want, then the email to get us on that is newsletter@tradewithufos.com. If you email us, then we can put you on the subscription for it. So a couple more things to highlight. My name's Becky. You can get me at becky@tradewithufos.com if you want to contact me for any reason, you have questions or anything. Otherwise, the support team are actually better and quicker at responding. So best to email them really if you have any questions at support@tradewithufos.com. So I am going to read the disclaimers. Whilst I do that, you guys can look at the sessions that we have here. Obviously today being a Wednesday, we have futures session at 9 AM Eastern and then an options session at 1 PM Eastern. You can see that we have stocks and investing on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And we have sharpening over the weekend, which is where we go into concepts or methodology, psychology, things like that. Speaking of psychology, the next upcoming class that we have is the psychology class. That is July 11th to the 17th. After that, you can obviously see we have back testing, then futures, stocks, and trading plans. So you guys can have a look at those dates and stuff whilst I read the disclaimers, and then I will crack on and go through the newsletter. Good. Okay. So the following videos, clips, demonstrations are for educational and instructional purposes only. Tradewitufos provides these videos purely for the purpose of demonstrating the method of using the products. Users understand that all the content used in the video is purely for demonstration purposes only and is not a guide and does not provide any indication or prediction of actual results. As a user, you understand and agree that hypothetical results obtained through the demonstration do not indicate in any way the results you may receive on using our products. The following presentation is for educational purposes only. All the symbols and trading ideas discussed are for demonstrating and are not recommendations. Active options and futures trading carries a high degree of risk and may not be suitable for all traders. Past historical trading performance of real or simulated trading does not guarantee success and may not be indicative of future results. You Can Trade is an online media publication service which provides educational investment content and ideas along with live trading demonstrations and does not provide investment or trading advice, research or recommendations of any kind. Please visit www.youcantrade.com for additional disclosure information. I'm trying to get quicker at reading that, so hopefully I got through that pretty quick. Okay, right, so let's go and have a look at the newsletter. So I'm just going to zoom in here. So this is the newsletter I was referencing. This is what gets sent out every day. And as part of this newsletter, what we do is we go through 4 of the major markets in the world. We have the S&P, which is obviously one of the major indices in the world, an index of equities. Then we have oil and gold, which are both commodities in the form of metal and energies. And then we have the euro, which is one of the biggest currencies in the world. Saying that, we look at the euro versus the US dollar. That's where we get the data for the euro. And the US dollar is responsible for 80% of transactions worldwide every day. So pretty fair to say we've covered quite a lot about what goes on in the markets out there. And even if you don't trade these markets directly, what you trade will probably be correlated. So for each of them, you'll see that we're going to go through the daily chart. So again, obviously different timeframes will show different things, but the daily again should coincide with what most people look at. And for each of them, we're going to look at the climate. By climate, what we mean is in what direction is a market going in? Is it in a general uptrend, downtrend, or up climate, down climate? We get that from the Auto Climate app that tells us that. It's a technology that looks through the statistics there and gives us that figure or that direction. The propagating figures tell us how likely in terms of on average, how far does that climate normally go for? So if we're in an upwards climate, how long does that climate normally go up for on that market? If we're in a downwards climate, how long does that climate normally go for in a downwards climate? So it gives us an idea of how long we're likely to continue to see a movement to a particular side. Then we have our nearest UFOs. So UFO stands for unfilled order. What we mean by that is where we expect there to be a lot of buy orders that could push price back up if price were to get there, or a lot of sell orders that could push price back down if price were to get there. Again, we're using technology to help us find this on our charts and show us again where there are probable turning points in the markets based on the orders that are there sat waiting. So for each of them, what we're also going to do is we're going to go into volatility. What volatility means, expected market volatility there. What that means is how fast or how far we expect markets to move. So we can get an idea of the quickness, I was going to say, but how quick they're going to move. And then we have climate and propagating to give us an idea of in which direction, and UFOs to give us an idea of maybe when that could change. Okay, so let's start with the S&P. With the S&P, we are using the symbol SPX.X. That's where we're getting this data from TradeStation. Okay, so let's just move this and maybe scrunch it a bit, make it look a little bit bigger for you guys. There we go. Okay, so first things first, let's look at the climate. We have our auto climate app at the bottom. And what this is showing us is a thin red dot. That's what the app is showing us. Now, being red, it means that the climate is in a general downwards movement, a down climate, a downtrend. But being thin, what the app is telling us by showing us a thin dot is that it's an unconfirmed climate, meaning we have less probability on our side. So if we were to get into a trade that followed that climate, we would have less probability of that working out. Now, in terms of UFOs that are on the chart, which is where we see unfilled orders that could turn price if price gets there, we have the closest buy UFO here, this green one, at 2955.45 to 2933.59. Closest sell UFO is up here, 3131.29 to 3154.19. Again, that's where we would expect there to be sell orders that could push price back down if price were to get there. Okay, so we saw that we had an unconfirmed down climate. That's what we see here. We have a little red arrow that's pointing downwards, not the one I just made, but the one that's on the newsletter. And we have a little cross next to it. So if there's a little cross next to it, it means that it's an unconfirmed climate. If there isn't a cross, then it's a confirmed climate. So that's the difference there. So in terms of propagating, meaning how far can we expect this market to continue in that direction? We can see here that normally the market goes down on a daily chart, or the S&P on a daily chart goes down for, I'm going to round this up, 7 candles on a daily chart. So 7 days. And we're on day number 4. So we are coming towards the end, I guess, sort of halfway through an average move or a normal move to the downside. But again, it's an unconfirmed climate, so we don't have probabilities on our side there. We saw where the UFOs were. From memory, I think we were coming up to a sell UFO. Yeah, there you go. So it'd be interesting to see what happens there. Staying on the S&P, let's just understand the volatility for it, how fast we would expect it to move. Now, the figures that we get for volatility come from the options prices of these markets. So options are traded by professional traders mostly, especially in these big markets. When buyers and sellers of anything are buying and selling, they set the price of it. So when buyers and sellers of options are buying and selling them, they're setting the price of options. And then the figures that we get come from that price. Now, what they're willing to buy and sell it for is directly related to the risk they're willing to take, given how far or how fast they think these markets are going to move. So basically, the price of the option is a reflection of what professional traders think will happen in the markets in terms of that movement, how quick they think it will go, and we get the numbers from that. So everything is done in an annualized number. So we have on the S&P, we have a 30.87% expected volatility in a year. So what that means is we think the S&P will go either up or down by 30.87% in 1 year. The symbol we're getting these numbers from, by the way, is the VIX, VIX.X. So we can reverse engineer that by understanding what's expected in a year. We can then reverse engineer it so that we can see that in a day, we would expect a movement either up or down of 60.29 points, which in a week means 132.72 points, either up or down in 1 week. And in a month, 276.28 points, either up or down in 1 month. So again, that just gives us an idea of how far we're likely to see these markets move within those timeframes. And again, the climate gives us an idea of as to what direction, and the propagating of the UFOs give us an idea of when that direction might change. Okay, so moving on to oil. So we're going to use at CL. That is the continuous futures chart for oil. That's where we're going to get these figures. So let's have a look at the chart here at CL. Okay, again, let's unscrunch this a little bit so we can see that. So again, let's have a look at our auto climate app on the bottom. So our auto climate app on the oil chart here is showing us a blue dot. Now, a blue dot means it's an upwards climate, it's an upwards trend. So we have an upwards movement in this market. And it's a thick dot, which is telling us that there is more probability to this. It's a confirmed climate. So if we were to get into a trade that followed that, that climate, we have more probabilities on our side because it's a confirmed climate. Again, nothing is 100%. It's all based on statistics and probabilities. Just because probability is on our side doesn't mean that it's going to work 100% of the time. Again, it just means we have more odds in our favor. Now, in terms of UFOs, we can see that we have our closest buy UFO is down here, nestled on top of another one. We have 25.87 to 25.36. That is the closest buy UFO where we would expect price to turn back up if price were to reach. As we can see, though, price is all the way up here, actually inside a red UFO at the moment, inside a sell UFO. The numbers for that are 40.37 to 41.63. So it'd be interesting to see here, we have a confirmed up climate, but we also have a presence of a red UFO or a sell UFO literally right in front of us there. So it'd be interesting to see what wins that fight over the next coming days. Now, in terms of climate, we said we had a confirmed upwards climate. We can see that here from the upwards green arrow that we have on the newsletter. In terms of how long we expect it to go for, what the propagating figures here are telling us is that oil normally goes up for, again, I'm going to round up the number, 7 candles on a daily chart, which means 7 days, and we're on day number 2. So I know it looked like it was going up quite a lot on that chart, looked like it was going up a long time, but we had a couple of unconfirmed climates in between. So we are on candle number 2, which means that, again, we have probabilities on our side. If we were to get into a trade following that climate, we have time for it to continue and meet the average. Now, again, it is an average. It's a statistic. It doesn't mean it happens all the time. And we are in a sell UFO at the moment. So again, be interesting to see which force wins there against those two, the climate versus the UFO. So let's come down to understand how fast we expect oil to move. So we're looking at OVX.X. That's where we get the numbers for. The annualized number for the implied volatility is 57.66%. So we would expect that movement either up or down in 1 year, which means in a day, we would expect a movement either up or down of 1.46%, sorry, 1.46 points. In a week, we would expect a movement either up or down of 3.22 points. And we would expect a movement up or down in 1 month of 6.70 points. Again, just gives us an idea of how fast that market is likely to move. Okay, moving on to gold. So once again, using the continuous futures contract to get the figures for gold, we're looking at GC. We'll open on a different tab here. Okay, so let's put that out there again. Okay, so once again, let's start with our Auto Climate app, which we have at the bottom. So we can see here, we have, once again, a thick blue dot. So the blue dot tells us we're in an upwards climate, and the thickness of the dot tells us that we have a confirmed climate and therefore more probabilities on our side. Closest buy UFO is this one just here, 1668.3 to 1647.0. We can see it's actually already done what we would expect it to do. Price came back and touched this UFO. I guess that looks like a couple of weeks back, and price has gone up from there, which is what we expect to happen if price does hit these buy UFOs. Still on the chart, so still a valid UFO. Closest, oh, sorry, not that. Closest red UFO or sell UFO is this one, 1863.6 to 1879.0. Looks like we're about 2/3, 3/4 of the way there at the moment. Okay, so like we said, we had a thick blue dot, so a confirmed upwards climate. We can see that here on the newsletter. In terms of propagating, how far can we expect this to keep going for? So what this shows us is that gold normally goes up for 6 candles. Again, I'm rounding up that number. Goes up for 6 candles on a daily chart, so that's 6 days. And we are on candle number 16. So we are multiple times what the average tells us, what the probabilities tell us, very overextended to the upside. Again, of course, sometimes things happen outside of statistical probabilities. Again, it's all about putting odds in our favor. And although we have a confirmed climate, just be aware that we are very overextended to the upside. Although, as we saw, we're still a little way off from that sell UFO. So it can be interesting to see if we keep breaking those numbers and we keep pushing to the upside here on gold. So in terms of volatility, so we get the numbers for volatility on gold from GVZ.X, or if you're American, GVZ.X. The current implied volatility for that for the year is 19.65% in 1 year that we would expect it to move either up or down on gold, which means we would expect a movement in 1 day of 22.2 points, either up or down. We would expect a movement in 1 week of 48.9 points, either up or down. And we would expect a movement in 1 month of 101.8 points, either up or down in that month. Okay, so that's gold. Last but not least, let's look at the euro. As we said before, we are looking at the euro versus the US dollar. So the spot forex currency pair, that's where we get the data for this one. So let's just go back to here, Euro USD. Okay, I'm just going to squidge this down a little bit and move it so we can see everything we need to see. Okay, I know we can't see all of price there, but I just want us to get that UFO at the top. So again, auto climate, we can see down here, kind of hard to see. It is a thin red dot. So red tells us that we are in a downwards climate, a downwards move, but thin tells us less probability, unconfirmed climate. Again, so we have less odds in our favor if we were to trade following that climate. Closest buy UFOs, we can see this one here. It's been touched a few times and we have had price go up from it, which again is what we would expect. And we're currently sitting just above it. The numbers are 1.1168 to 1.1070. And I've just rounded those to the closest pips that they need to be. Closest sell UFO all the way up here at 1.1740 to 1.1816. So again, we can see that's quite far away. And we are sat right on top of a buy UFO at the moment, unconfirmed climate as well. So in terms of the unconfirmed climate, how far can we expect a climate to continue? So normally, again, what this shows us is that the euro US dollar would go down for 4 candles, once again, rounding that upwards, 4 candles on a daily chart, so 4 days, and we are on candle number 1. So again, we are at the start of what is usual, what is average for this market to do. So in terms of probabilities, we have more probability that it will continue in that direction because we're right at the start of the normal move, but it's an unconfirmed climate and we're sat on a buy UFO. So again, it'd be interesting to see which force wins of those going on at the moment. So in terms of volatility, how fast could we expect the euro to move? We are looking at EVZ.X or EVZ.X. The current implied volatility is 7.74%, either up or down, that we would expect in 1 year in terms of the movement on the euro, which means in 1 day, we could expect movement up or down of 55 pips. In 1 week, we could expect a movement up or down of 120 pips. And in 1 month, we could expect a movement up or down of 250 pips. Again, just gives us an idea of how fast these markets are likely to move. And again, we know from the climate and the UFOs, or we have more probability from the climate and the UFOs to give us an idea of in what direction and for how long. Okay, so that's all of the markets. So let's just come down and understand a bit more about indirect forces that could impact what goes on this week, what goes on today specifically. So here we are looking at high impact news that affects US markets. Now, I've got these figures from fxstreet.com/economic-calendar. I filtered by high impact news and I filtered by US markets. If you trade markets outside the US, or if you want to look at news that has lesser impact as well, then you can go to that link and play about with the filters so that you can have it fit your trade plan a bit better. Now, normally the way this works is if the data has come out, it will be filled in this actual column. Interestingly, on the link, if you click on it, you'll see as well, they're still blank from yesterday's one. We don't have the data on those yet. Which is why it looks the same as it would have done yesterday. So in terms of understanding what's going to happen from today onwards, obviously Tuesday's already been and gone. So Wednesday being today, we have these 3 coming out. We have 8:15 a.m. Eastern will be the employment change. We have 10 a.m. Eastern manufacturing report, and we have the FOMC minutes at 2 p.m. Eastern. So again, these are indirect forces. The major forces or the direct forces that affect the markets are the orders themselves and the trends and the climates. News and reports are indirect forces, but obviously they can also have an effect on the markets. So it's good to be aware of them. Use them in your trade plan, however you use them, however you want to, whether you trade less when there's news or more or whatever you do. But again, just be aware that that's what's coming up. So a couple more reminders before we wrap up. So firstly to say, if you're not already a subscriber to the channel, you can be at www.tradictive.com/youcantrade. If you're not sure and you just want to try us out, there is a free 14-day access So you can try us out for a couple of weeks, see if it makes sense to you first before sort of committing to anything further. In terms of 4 classes, which is where we start from the foundation up and really go into depth on all the foundations of these and all of the details of these concepts and of these markets. The next one we have is the psychology course. That will be, I believe, July 11th to 17th. If you go to www.tradective.com/psychology live, you'll be able to see the dates that are upcoming and obviously the content of the course and the information on the instructor as well. And again, just to say, at the moment, you can register for any course and get an additional course for free. So what that means is you have to pick a course that's of equal or lesser value than the first one you picked. So maybe go to the website and play about with it in the way that makes the most sense to what you want to do and sort of financially as well. Okay, so obviously today being Wednesday, we will see you at 9 a.m. Eastern for futures. We'll see you at 1 p.m. Eastern for options. We also have the session at the end of the day, 4:15 p.m. Eastern, where my colleague Boyan will be looking at what happened in the markets, what went as expected, maybe which of these forces won, if that plays out today. We'll see what happened. If you need us for anything, as always, support@tradective.com. If you have any questions, you can always get us there. Hope you have a good day in the markets, guys. I'll see you again tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow, so I'll see you then. Have a good day and happy trading. Take care, guys. Bye.